Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to color and shade a simple flat drawing. So we're going to add some color to this and some shading. Here's an example of one where I've just simply colored and shaded this a gray tone. This would be if I was using some materials on top of it. But in the demo that I'm going to show you today, I'm going to show you just how to color and shade it. So we have our object, this image I've brought in. I've unlocked the layer, so it's a simple layer in itself. It's not locked, so I can interact with it. I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to call that line work, so I can keep track of where and what that is. I'm going to add in two layers, two maybe extra layers, maybe a third one for the background. So two, because I'm going to color the main t-shirt in one color, and then I'm going to color the sleeves and the collar in a second color, and then the third layer would be maybe for a background. So 1, 2, 3, and rename these. So BG for background, t-shirt main, and then collar and sleeves. Okay, so I'll take my line work and I'll bring that up to the top of the layer stack, and then I will start to add some extra colors onto these. So for the line work, for this particular technique to work, you need to take the top layer with the line work on it and set the blend mode to multiply, so that will multiply down, and you will see through the white color on this, and you will see any colors that are painted or filled in below this. So on the t-shirt main, we'll go and grab my paint bucket, and then I'm going to go down to my foreground color, and I'm going to mix up a 50% gray. So I can set this to pure white, and then set the ketone to 50%. Will give me a 50% gray, and then paint in for here. And if there's any, areas where it doesn't work with, I'm just going to fill those in too. Now, when you're using the paint bucket like this, you need to be aware of the settings on the command line on the top. So you want it to be anti-aliased, so you get a nice smooth edge. Contiguous, so it fills inside the border of any pixels that you've got. So we're using the line work from the layer above for this, and for that to work we need to make sure that all three of these are selected. So contiguous, so it's going to look at that line work and fill in between it, and all layers, so it will actually paint onto this layer and not my line work layer. And I'm going to paint in this little panel here, go on to the color and sleeves layer and do the same thing. So I'm just going to fill those in, and the color and so on. So now we've got a nice gray t-shirt. Actually, you know what, we're going to change that one up. Let's just go for a blue for the main t-shirt and leave the gray for the sleeves and collar, just so you can see a slightly a different effect when you are using an actual color on this. Not everybody likes gray t-shirts. So with this layer selected, the main t-shirt, I'm going to use these tools, the dodge and burn tools. So the dodge tool will lighten the image and add some highlights, and we're going to use the burn tool to do the opposite, to add shadows and shading. These are, again, I've mentioned this before, classic photography darkroom techniques. So when you were in the darkroom working with actual film, you might use little pieces of card and so on to add and obscure light from hitting the photography film, and lighten the image or overexpose it and give it more light on it and darken the image. And that's where they get their names, for you dodging the light and then you're burning in the light and so on. So when you have the dodge, either the dodge and burn tool selected, you need to look at the command line at the top up here. So you're looking for what range of tones this is going to affect. So it's always good to start with the mid tones, depending on how light or dark the the hue or shade or tone from your color is. So you'll see straight away if it's affecting it in the right area. And the second thing to look out for is the exposure, how much effect this is going to have on the image. So we've got in our drawing here already, we've got some idea of where some of these folds and creases are going to make some of these shadows. So I'm just going to make my brush diameter, the brush size, a little bit big so that I can easily blend these to these areas. Just a little bit here. And you want to build these up, you know, in amounts. And if you go too far, you know, you're working on a computer, you can just hit Control Z or Edit Undo, and then you're back to where you need to be. So you just want to build these up in kind of smaller, smallish increments. You could use the lasso tools to make some, you know, ring-fenced masks and so on. So if you wanted to add areas where there's a really strong sharp line, that's fine as well. In this demo, I just want this to be nice and simple and an introduction to it, to using these tools. So a little bit of shadow and shading for those. Inside the back of the t-shirt is probably going to be a lot darker than the outside, so I'll just add a little bit for that. And if you make these tools nice and small, you can add very, very sharp lines to describe these shadows and shading. And just keep filling it in, working with it until you're happy with the result. That's okay. You know, that was all of 1.5 minutes maybe. And the dodge and burn tools will only affect the layers that you have selected. So while I have this main t-shirt layer selected, it's not going to work anywhere else. And that's why I was able to really nicely shade in that back area of the t-shirt, because we've separated these layers up. So I'll swap over to the collar and sleeves and do the similar thing there. So I'll just add a little bit of shading. Maybe this has a little bit more of a kind of a graduated shadow from the inside of the t-shirt. Maybe a little bit dark. You can just have a look at that. And then just shade it away until it looks right to your eye. And again, using your observational analysis. So you looking at objects, you looking at your t-shirts or your garments and other things around your house, and then just working with the lights and darks based on those. So there's some shadows. Okay, so we've got some shadows in. Now it's time to add some highlights. So I'll go back to my main t-shirt layer and then swap over from the burn tool to the dodge tool. And just make sure the diameter of the brush size itself is, you know, it's relative to the shape that you're working with. Again, just have a look at the range that it's working with. So whether it's shadows, midtones, or highlights, and then the exposure as well. So just add in a few small highlights to this. Again, it will only work on layers where you have selected. So just add in a little few highlights to this here. And again, you just want to build these up slowly. So, you know, you may need to adjust that exposure right down so that you can build it up in the amounts that you're expecting and wanting to work with. And if you make a mistake, again, you're working on a computer, so you can just hit undo and just make it go away. So here we'll just add a small little highlight here and so on. And that's probably, you know, that's probably enough for this to start to look dimensional and 3D like. And then swap over from the t-shirt to the collar and the cuffs. And then I could just add in a little highlight here along the edge. And the dodge and burn tool cancel each other out. So if you go too much on the shadows and you need to bring it back, you can just use your burn tool to make it darker or the dodge tool to make it lighter. And if you make complete hames of it, you can always just repaint it in, because again, you know, these are all separated from this layer. So you could just add in a new layer, paint back in the base color, and then reshade it. You know, we've only been working on this a few minutes. And on the collar layer, so I didn't do anything on the collar, I've just done the sleeves. So I'll swap over and use my burn tool and add a little bit of shading to the collar itself. Maybe something like that, just to separate the foreground from the background on it, and then maybe a tiny bit in the front, something like that. And then swap from the burn to the dodge tool, and same thing, just add in a tiny little bit of highlights where I'm picturing those. And now you can see, you can take your hand sketch or your Illustrator sketch, scan it in, photograph it, bring it in and adjust the levels, tidy up your line work, and then color and shade it so it looks like a really nice three-dimensional drawing. Okay, thanks.